You've spelunked into the Mat Cave. Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Mat Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. This week, there's not a lot to talk about, but I'm going to try to fill 30 minutes for you. So what I'll be talking about this week is Real Salt Lake. They continue their unbeaten run. I was not expecting it, but here we are. Diego Luna is back in the fold. For how long? Nobody knows. I'll kind of go over his situation as well. And then the Big 12 Media Days happened. So Big 12 Media Days happen at the beginning of July each year. And BYU and Utah, obviously, were both there and talked about just what has been going on in their respective programs. There was not a lot of there when it comes to Media Days because it's just fluff pieces being written about each squad. Everybody's undefeated going into the new season, so there's a lot of hope for everyone. But there were a couple of kernels in there that I do want to talk about. And then lastly, I want to go over BYU's quarterback situation. I'm not going to ever be talking about the off-the-field stuff. I'm not going to talk about the honor code. I'm not going to talk about any of the rumors being thrown around or anything like that about Jake Retzlaff. You know, wish you well. He's out of the program. So who's left? Who's going to be playing quarterback for BYU this coming fall? I don't know. Kalani Sitake doesn't even know. But I'll go over that. So thank you all so much for being here. As always, please do rate, review, like, comment, subscribe, wherever it is, however you listen. You find me on every podcasting app out there. I was just recently approved for iHeartRadio, so that's really cool. I'm grateful to be on there. So now I'm basically everywhere. You listen to your podcast, you can find the Mat Cave. So, and if you could do me a favor, and it's a pretty simple one. I mean, you guys are already doing me a favor here by listening, but just one more. Just share this with one person that you think would enjoy listening to the program. That would be great. Just one person. It could be your dad, could be your mom, could be your friend at work. Anyone. So if you could just give one person that you think would enjoy the program, I'd appreciate that. So here we go. Let's dive into things. You can find me on Facebook, The Mat Cave Podcast, YouTube, The Mat Cave Podcast, and on Instagram, The Mat Cave Podcast. All right, that covers that. Now, let's start with Real Salt Lake. So Real Salt Lake came into this game in a 3-game unbeaten run, 2 wins and 1 draw against less than stellar competition. I detailed that last week, and the less than stellar competition continued this week with the Houston Dynamo coming to Sandy, Utah, and they are not great either. They had a -5 goal differential coming into the game. They were 4 points up on Real Salt Lake. That's it. So, again, not Minnesota, not San Diego, not New York City FC or Inter Miami, but you play who's on the schedule, right? So, going into this game, I was expecting a draw, in all honesty. I thought they were pretty even on paper. Houston Dynamo got Jack McGlynn back, who I am expecting to be on the roster for the World Cup next year for the U.S. men's national team that I detailed last week. And Real Salt Lake got back their best player in Diego Luna. And the game, it was a tale of two halves. It really was. So in the first half, it was dominated by Real Salt Lake. Real Salt Lake had possession. They were attacking very well. They were doing finally what Pablo Mastroeni wants them to do when they have possession, which is flip the field. And so they were doing that very well because Diego Luna is a willing runner. He's fast, and he has great control when the ball is kicked over to him. So that was really well done. And then they were threatening in set pieces. They were defending set pieces better than they have in the past. And they got a goal in, and it didn't come from Diego Luna, which was kind of surprising, right? It came from William Agada, the guy they signed from Sporting Kansas City. This is his second goal, which means he's already tied for second on the team behind Diego Luna. It's the sorry state that Real Salt Lake's offense is in. But he is turning out to be a good signing. And now there's the real threat in front of goal outside of Diego Luna. There's William Agada now, who's found, the net a couple of times, along with Diogo Gonçalves, who had another couple of attempts on goal that just didn't go in. It's got to be frustrating for him because a lot of those are really good saves from the keeper. And so he's just got to keep launching them at the net. Eventually, they're going to start pouring in. I really do believe that for Diogo. And now, as we look at the first half here, Real Salt Lake did really well. Rafael Cabral, the goalkeeper, the new captain for the team, he's starting to find his rhythm Because if we look at the last few games for Real Salt Lake, sure, he let 2 in against St. Louis, but he hasn't allowed more than 2 goals. He hasn't really allowed more than 1 in any game other than the game against Vancouver. So the game against Vancouver, he allowed 3. So he is starting to get his footing. Obviously, we have been spoiled in goal because of Nick Raimondo, the Rocky Mountain Wall. So now that we're starting to get a good goalkeeper, Zach McMath was okay. He had flashes of brilliance, but obviously Real Salt Lake needed an upgrade. I thought, and I'm sure the front office thought, that Rafael Cabral would be that guy. It didn't start that way, but it's starting to feel like that's what's coming to fruition now that he's more comfortable. And then the second half happened, and Real Salt Lake just couldn't keep possession of the ball. Houston adapted well to what Real wanted to do. And so what happened was anytime they tried to flip the field like that, Houston was ready for it, and it just turned the ball over. And so then Real Salt Lake tried to adapt and go through the middle, and Real Salt Lake's just not built like that. They don't have players that can keep possession in the middle of the field. And so it was just Houston Dynamo dominating, I would say, 80% of the second half with possession, attempts on goal. It was 7-1 at one point. And I was fully expecting Houston to win this game. I really was, because I hate the bend but don't break philosophy. In American football and in soccer, I hate that philosophy because so much can go wrong. And so that's what started to happen in the second half. And thankfully, Houston's attack did not really garner more than, I would say, 2 good saves from Cabral. Other than that, though, the game went well. Real Salt Lake wins this one 1-0, extends their unbeaten run to 4 games. Now they're going to be going up against the 5th-place Portland Timbers, tied for 4th with Seattle. So that unbeaten run's probably going to come to an end. They're going up to Oregon for that game. So enjoy the unbeaten run while we had it, I guess. I don't even know if Diego Luna is going to be on the team when they make that trip. So I also wanted to talk about a run of play near the end of the second half, and I really wish the ball went in the net because it was a beautiful play. So Diego Luna got the ball on an overlapping run from Bodie Hidalgo, and he had a heavy touch. He was able to recover it, and then he kind of flicked the ball into the net, into a great position. It was just kind of floating down. And the striker, and forgive me, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. It was Peel. That's right, it was Peel. Arieth Peel from Australia did a wonderful bicycle kick. It was textbook. And it was so good that the ball went straight to the keeper, and the keeper honestly looked surprised it was going straight to him, and so he just kind of pushed the ball over the net. If that went in, that would have been the goal of the season. Like, bicycle kick, beautiful little pop-up from Diego Luna to Arieth Peel, but it went straight to the keeper, and the keeper just knocked it over the net. So I really wish that went in because it was beautifully done. It was a very well-executed bicycle kick as well. It didn't endanger any of the defenders, and he just went for it. And I really wish that ball went in. But it didn't. Real Salt Lake wins this one 1-0. What does that mean in the standings? Not much. Real Salt Lake stays 5th from the bottom. They have 25 points. They are 10 points clear of last place, which is St. Louis and the Galaxy, the MLS Cup winners last year. Yikes. That's a nightmare season, and they spent a lot of money in this offseason, too. They have Marco Royce, who was a former FIFA cover athlete, and they are sitting 15 points and well out of competition. That's crazy. It pulled them to within 1 point of Houston. They are 6 points out, 7 points out of real playoff consideration. So the season's not over. And with the offense starting to get better, there is a little spark of hope that something can happen. But the defense is starting to get a lot worse. Yeah, I said Cabral in goal is getting better, and he is. He's getting more comfortable. He has the captain's armband, so now he's able to kind of command the back unit a little bit better. But overall, this team is not playoff caliber. They're just not. I fully expect them to fall back into the race for the worst record in MLS, especially when they sell Diego Luna. They need to. Not just because of, Diego Luna's career trajectory and it's the right thing to do, but just it's good business. Sell high. And Diego Luna will not be higher than he is right now. This is like the peak of what Real Salt Lake can get for him. And so while I don't want to see him go, I kind of do from the business side of things because that will generate a lot of money and Real Salt Lake will be able to then reinvest it into a holistic roster. And personally, I'd like them to go for a better couple of players than what they have. And I think that's doable. So now let's kind of transition into Diego Luna and what I expect. So coming off of his breakout performance at the Gold Cup, there are teams in La Liga, which is the top division of soccer in Spain, where Real Madrid, FC Barcelona, Atletico Madrid all play. There's interest from RC Celta Vigo, who are at the bottom of that, but the bottom of La Liga is light years better than MLS. So RC Celta Vigo are interested. Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, and Tottenham are all sniffing around a little bit too for Diego Luna. I do not think Diego Luna is a Premier League type player. He is too small. He would just get bullied out of it. So I don't want to see him to go to England. But that's the type of club that's interested in him. There are a couple from the Bundesliga interested as well. Borussia Mönchengladbach that I talked about last week. They're interested. Borussia Dortmund even is a little bit interested, and so is Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen, if we remember 2 years ago, went undefeated. So that's the kind of interest being generated in Diego Luna, and Real Salt Lake needs to take advantage of it. They cannot be selfish. And Eric Winalda, who is a former U.S. men's national team striker, a lovely player, he did a wonderful video on YouTube about how MLS clubs have stunted the growth of the U.S. men's national team by being selfish, by keeping these players in MLS and not allowing them to go abroad. And I agreed with him. I agree with him 100%. There are so many players. Jesus Ferreira, a couple of years ago, he was a no-brainer for the U.S. men's national team. Striker, dude could score goals just by thinking about it. And now he's wasting away. He's not even with his home team of FC Dallas anymore. He's kind of a forgotten entity. And that's because FC Dallas was selfish with him. And so that's just one example. There are multiple out there. Freddie Adu, if we remember him, he was the next, Pele. He was the American Pele when I was growing up. And so these MLS clubs are being selfish about it. And if they truly want to see the talent grow and want more youth players, even though it's a rich person's game in the U.S., they need to let these players go abroad. They really do. Show that there is an opportunity. I don't care if the MLS is seen as a feeder league for these bigger leagues. That's good, because that means good talent will come through MLS. We'll be able to watch them for a couple of years, and then we'll be able to watch them at the bigger clubs in Europe. That's exciting. That's good. And that's only good for business, because then that also generates viewing revenue from Europe, because they want to see where these players are coming from. And so I want to see Diego Luna go for that reason. Selfishly, as a Real Salt Lake fan, I want to see him here forever because he's fun to watch and he's a genuinely good human being from everything I can tell. Obviously, that can change, but everything that's outward facing with him is he's a good human being too. And so I want to see him succeed. I want to see him be at Real Salt Lake, that small part of me. But the realistic and smart part of me wants to see him go to RC Celta Vigo over in La Liga. See him go to Borussia Mönchengladbach over in the Bundesliga. So that's what I want to see happen. I want to see Real Salt Lake let him go. That's what I want to see. And that's what I expect to see by the end of July. Okay, so that's Real Salt Lake. That's what I expect to see with Diego Luna. Diego Luna was really good in this game as well. He had fantastic running. He was great getting pressure on the ball, pushing up, not allowing Houston to play out of the back easily. Like, he's a very, very, very good player. By far and away, the best player Real Salt Lake has. By far and away. So let's move it along. So let's move along to the Big 12 Media Days that just happened in Frisco, Texas, at Jerry World, I believe, which is AT&T Stadium, Dallas Cowboys, all that stuff. And I want to talk about first the Utah Utes. So obviously last year was not the year anybody was expecting. It was a terrible year offensively, and it was like watching the New York Jets, in all honesty. This year, whole new offensive staff. They brought in a brand new quarterback, but it's not technically brand new in the system. And Kyle Whittingham and Jason Beck are really banking on the fact that Devin Dampier can be a coach on the field and get the guys up to speed for what needs to happen with this motion offense that they're going to be running. And it's going to be an offense that Utah fans are not necessarily used to seeing, right? In the past few years with Cam Rising, it's been a pro-style offense, play action, run heavy, deep balls, taking advantage of, 9 men in the box to stop the run. This is different. It's going to be centered on the quarterback and his ability to run the ball. Make no mistake, Devin Dampier is great running the ball. He's not fantastic throwing it. So think, I would say, of a more talented Nate Johnson to Utah fans. He's serviceable. Everybody's really high on him. Everyone's really excited, as you should be as a Utah fan. It's a brand new offense. Kyle Whittingham did something he never does, and he fired a coordinator. And now there's a new juice in the program. There's a bunch of new transfers on offense, quarterback room, running back room, wide receiver room, tight end room. Really the only unit on the offensive side that is going to be any good, personally, I think, is the offensive line. They've got 5 guys. Their 2 tackles are going to go in the first round if they stay healthy. 3 guys in the middle are all going to get drafted. Where? I don't know, but that entire offensive line is going to get drafted in next year's draft if they all declare. Which means after this coming season, Utah's kind of in trouble when it comes to the offensive line. But on offense, I'm not sold on Devin Dampier. I'm not sold on anybody in the wide receiver room. Even Kyle Whittingham isn't, because he said coming out of spring camp, they don't have a pecking order. They don't have an alpha dog in that wide receiver room. They don't know who's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And yeah, it is just spring ball. When you go into fall camp, it's a lot different. The pads come on. It's a lot more competitive. People are actually fighting for their jobs. And so when I look at Utah, it's going to be a stellar defense again. It just is. It's Utah. It's Kyle Whittingham. It's Morgan Scalley. It's Utah. The defense is going to be there. Is the offense going to be as advertised? And they've got a tough test right off the bat. Week 0 against UCLA in the Rose Bowl. That's a tough test. And I know UCLA is down, but they did just get Nico Iamaleava, who had a great season in the SEC. So that's a really good quarterback that they're going to be going up against. And it's going to be in LA. If we remember, Utah fans, Utah doesn't do great in LA. It's a house of horrors for Utah. Recently, not so much, because they did beat USC recently. They've beaten UCLA in LA before, but it's not great. So it's a tough test right off the bat. And UCLA, I mean, it's weird to say it, but they are a Big Ten program. They've been in the Big Ten now for a year. It's their second year. It was the second year where BYU really took off in their new conference. So we'll see what happens there, but it's not going to be your older brother's UCLA. I would say your dad's UCLA, but it really is. With how fast things move in college football, it's your older brother's UCLA. I'm not sold. I'm not sold on the Utah offense. Watching New Mexico play last year, they didn't even make a bowl game. Everyone's excited about Jason Beck's offense. And in theory and on paper, the offense looks really fun. It really does. It's going to be fun to watch if everything breaks the way it should. But we've heard that before, right? Utah fans, we've heard that with Cam Rising. If he stays healthy, if things break the right way, the offense should be really good. Well, here we are. Second verse, same as the first. I mean, you could change a few of the lyrics, but it's the same thing. So I'm not sold. The touchdown to interception ratio for Devin Dampier last year, if you were playing in Power 5, he would have gotten benched. It was 14-12 or something similar like that. That's not fantastic. That's actually pretty bad. That's almost Jake Retzlaff. And everybody knows how I'm not a fan of Jake Retzlaff's game. I'm not. So, all of this to say, during Big 12 Media Days, that's pretty much what everyone was asking Utah about, asking Kyle Whittingham about, was the offense. Offense. And that's low-hanging fruit for anybody interviewing him, or anybody in the press pool tossing out questions to him. That's low-hanging fruit. What I wanted to hear about was the defense, and there was only one question when he was taking questions from the Big 12 press about the defense. And he said, I expect more of the same. For me, I do too, because they've got Logan Fano. Sack Lake City should be fine. But the defensive backs, the defensive back room, they've got Smith Snowden. But who else is there? Who else can run with the receivers in the Big 12? I don't know. So everyone is really high on Utah. Phil Steele has Utah being second, losing in the Big 12 championship game to Baylor. I don't know if they'll make it. They'll make a bowl game. Absolutely 100%. Utah's going bowling. They are. But I don't see them there. We'll see what happens in fall camp. This is not my prediction. But coming out of Big 12 Media Days, the focus was on the offense. The offensive line is one of the best in the country. Top 5 in the country. Easy. If everybody stays healthy. Easy. You can write that in stone. But I'm not sold on Devin Dampier. And then who's gonna catch the ball? And then who's going to come out of the running back room? It's an entirely new running back room. I don't know. So now let's move this over to the BYU side of things. And a lot of the questions, rightfully so, was about the Jake Retzlaff situation and the honor code and all that stuff. I'm not touching it. I'm not going anywhere near it. It's not my place to talk about it. What I'm going to talk about, though, is the quarterback room that is left behind. Who does BYU have? Who are these quarterbacks? So, first, the most fun name in the quarterback room is Bear Bachmeier. He was originally a 3-star quarterback coming out of high school. He committed to Stanford. He had offers from places like Georgia, Michigan, Arkansas, the University of Utah, Oregon State, Oregon. So he was getting highly recruited. Coming out, he was the number 34 quarterback prospect by 24/7 Sports scouting rankings. ESPN had him as the 12th ranked quarterback coming out. So he's kind of all over the board as far as what people think he's going to be. What he is, though, and I watched a few of his high school highlights, which is really... that means it's the summer. He's a tank. The kid is 6'2", 225, and he's a freshman. 6'2", 225. BYU hasn't had a quarterback like that in a while. Zach Wilson was 6 foot, 6'1". Jake Retzlaff, 6'1". So this is a quarterback that is a quarterback. Now, that's Bear Bachmeier. Obviously, there's no college tape on him because he hasn't played. He was at Stanford with his brother, and then him and his brother transferred to BYU this offseason. The other two in the room, Trayson Borgett. So Trayson Borgett was a transfer coming into the program last year. In 2022 and 2023, he played at Western Michigan, where he played a couple of games. His stats in 2023 were 713 yards passing, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. But that was in the MAC. And the MAC has done a great job of keeping all their schools together. None of them have left. But that doesn't mean they're necessarily great. If you look at the Phil Steele magazines, they're either the bottom conference or the second to last conference every year. So it's not like he was playing against top-tier competition, but he does have FBS experience. He is 6'2", 210-ish. So, again, he's also built more like a quarterback than BYU has had in a while. And then the last one is McCae Hillstead. McCae Hillstead transferred in from Utah State last year. He was in competition for a little bit for the starting quarterback gig. He was run away from by Jake Retzlaff and Gary Bohannon. This past offseason in the spring, everybody was really high on him. He was looking really good in spring ball, but that's spring ball. A lot of the guys that he was going up against have transferred out. So who do I think is going to be coming out? Well, I'll kind of defer to Coach Kalani Sitake on this one. And during Big 12 Media Days, he said that's my job, is to figure that out. And I'm just going to play who the best player is. That's what I'm going to do. That's kind of a cop-out. That's a non-answer. When I was in school, that's what we call a non-answer. So you needed to follow up on that question, and nobody followed up on it. The easy follow-up is, who's the best player? I mean, that's the follow-up, right? But they're not allowed to do follow-up questions in the press pool like that. So who do I think the best player is in this group? I'm going to have to go with Bear Bachmeier. I think Bear Bachmeier is going to be the best quarterback out of the group. Trayson Borgett was at Western Michigan. McCae Hillstead was at Utah State. I said Trayson Borgett's stats. Let me read out McCae Hillstead's stats. In 2023 for Utah State, he threw for over 1,000 yards, 1,062, 11 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. That's Jake Retzlaff territory. I don't want to go near that. He was the leader in the clubhouse to be the backup to Jake Retzlaff after spring ball. Now things are different. Being the lead backup is light years difference to being the starter, especially at a program like BYU, where there is a premium placed on being the starting quarterback at BYU because of the history. I don't know when it comes to these three. If I had to say, if I was Aaron Roderick, I would put the onus on Bear Bachmeier and say, I want you to be the starter. Prove me right. And he would have to crush it in fall practice and fall camp to prove that. If not, I'm going to Trayson Borgett. Why, Matt? Why are you going for those two instead of McCae Hillstead? Why are you going against the reporting? It's because McCae Hillstead is 5'10", 190. That's short and light for Power 4 football. If BYU were still in the Mountain West, if BYU were still playing the independent schedule where it was only 1 or 2 or 3 big programs they were going up against, yeah, he could probably fit the bill. But things are different. Times have changed. It's Power 4 football. Having a frames like McCae Hillstead's at 5'10", 190, he's not going to last. He's just not. And so I would look towards Bear Bachmeier and Trayson Borgett to be the starter coming out of camp. Personally, I think Bear Bachmeier should go. I think just hand the reins over to him, see what he can do. Because they're all just kind of keeping the seat warm for Ryder Lyons when he comes back from his mission. So that's really where we're at with the BYU quarterback competition. And that at Big 12 Media Days, those were the two key storylines that were coming out. A couple of things I want to highlight that I liked from both coaches. So Kyle Whittingham did a wonderful job of reminding everybody that Morgan Scalley is the head coach in waiting. He's not just the defensive coordinator. He's also not just the presumed heir apparent. It's in writing. It's in his contract. And so he was reminding everybody that I alone didn't make this offensive coordinator hire. It was a collaboration effort. I wanted to key in on that for all of you, to remind you that this might be the last year of Kyle Whittingham as the head coach of the University of Utah. It could be. He did say he didn't want to go out the way the last season ended. He didn't want to go out like that, and so he decided to run it back. That, to me, especially with all the transfers he's got coming in, it feels like a last hurrah to me. We'll see what happens. And like I was saying repeatedly last season, Kyle Whittingham has more than earned the right to decide when he hangs it up. No matter what idiots like me say, it's his decision. And then now I'm going to switch over to Kalani Sitake, and what he was talking about is really unique in the college football landscape, because a lot of the coaches are blaming NIL. A lot of the coaches are blaming the transfer portal. Look no further than Dabo Sweeney. Look no further than Kirby Smart. Even Dan Mullen over at UNLV. They don't like it. Kalani Sitake, on the other hand, said he loves it. He says he's very excited by it. He says he's charged up because of it. And he also said something that's very unique among college coaches. I've only ever heard it from really Coach Prime, Kalani Sitake, Kenny Dillingham, as well as a couple of coaches in the Big Ten. And that it's my job to get the guys to stay. It's my job to make sure that these guys don't go. Instead of whining about boosters paying stuff, NIL contracts being out of this world, wham, poor me, it's not the way it used to be, Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeney. That's unique. He also said they also need to know that they lose credits when they transfer. So if they do want a degree, it's better for them long-term to stay in one place. I haven't heard that from anybody, not from a talking head, not from any sort of commissioner in any of the leagues, not from any other head coach or even athletic director. I haven't heard that from any of them. That's a different way to look at it. And so if these kids do want a degree, because a lot of their parents want them to get a degree and not just play football, obviously if you're a 5-star recruit going to play football, that is your job, that's your degree. But for a lot of the other kids, the degree is what they want. And so Kalani Sitake bringing that up, and it was just glossed over. I thought that was really interesting. And how I think he is uniquely positioned in this new environment, along with guys like Kenny Dillingham of Arizona State, like Coach Prime at Colorado, because Coach Prime talks about it too. He says, if you want a degree, you got to stay put. I think Kalani Sitake is the right man for the job. And I think he's the right man for the job for the long term, no matter what his record says. Because BYU is such a difficult place, not just because of the honor code, but because BYU likes to position itself as a learning institution as well, just like the University of Utah. So, long term, I think Kalani Sitake is the guy for the job. But overall, Big 12 Media Day snooze fest. It was, it was fluff pieces. It was softball questions being lobbed up to them. And overall, with the honor code situation, I think Kalani Sitake did a wonderful job with that as well, because he didn't do the Bronco Mendenhall piece of holier than thou. He didn't sound like a disappointed bishop or whatever. Kalani did it the adult way. And he said, it's not my place to speak on behalf of Jake. Let him say his piece. And then we'll go from there. And that's exactly what happened. So, there you go. And that's the episode this week. I was kind of nervous heading into this week, thinking about what am I going to talk about? But Big 12 Media Days happened. Real Salt Lake won again. So, that makes for a pretty easy episode. So, thank you all so much for being here. Like, comment, subscribe. And again, my ask of you, dear Spelunker, is to share this with one person in your life that you think would enjoy this. And I will see you all next week when we spelunk back into the Mad Cave.